Living by yourself in a tower in a mountain, keeping a watchful eye out for fires. It's not a lifestyle for everyone, but for a select few, it's a way of life. And of course, it's important work in detecting and preventing fires. They live in what's called a fire lookout, often for months at a time. My guest today documents Montana's fire lookout stories, interviewing people and listening to their experiences. The stories are then archived at the University of Montana's Mansfield Library. Beth Hodder is a board member of the Northwest Montana Lookout Association. Beth's with me now. Welcome to American Voices, Beth.
Thank you. I'm very happy to be here.
So before we talk fire lookouts and how you're preserving their stories, let me hear a little bit about your background. I mean, I understand you were a teacher and then you worked at preserving plants and grasses of Montana. Tell us a little bit about your job history.
Sure. Well, I grew up in Cleveland, Ohio, which is a far cry from.
That's a non sequitur after I prepared for a Western answer. Okay, you grew up in Cleveland, Ohio.
Yes, and I lived there throughout my youth, I guess. I actually lived in a suburb, and I loved the outdoors, always did.
The sun still shines in Cleveland. Still
Yes,
comes
it
up.
does.
There's a moon.
It still does.
Yeah.
After I graduated from college, I became a teacher. And during one summer, I helped take a bunch of students who were junior high school aged to Colorado on a field study. And I totally fell in love with the West. So I turned around and I said, "See you later, Ohio." And when I was 30, I moved west, and I was very fortunate to secure a job with the U.S. Forest Service in Montana.
Mm-hmm.
So I fell in love with Montana and, have been there ever since.
Yeah. So what did you do in that job? This is preserving native plants and grass?
Initially, I worked in silviculture, which essentially is doing the work that makes trees, grow and makes them what the Forest Service would like to see in the future. So I was planting trees. I did thinning contracts. So we would thin the big forests, that sort of thing. And then later on, I got to do some more work, and they were looking for a person who could handle a native plant program. We did not have anyone to do that on our forest. I ended up being the person that they chose, and it was fabulous. That's where I did start working with native plants and grasses.
Well, what was it like for you working outdoors? I mean, connected to plant life so intimately.
It was wonderful, actually. It was a dream come true for me, and just being out in the outdoors. It didn't matter whether it was sunny, it was pouring rain, it was snowing. It was being out there and just feeling connected with what I was doing and what I was doing it for the land. And so I loved it.
But that's a good concept, isn't it? I mean, what you just said, I feel that deeply. If I was in that job, or I can count any number of times where I've been in a natural environment or doing something, and you said you did it for the land. Tell us about that feeling.
It just makes you feel like you're connected. You were talking about lookouts, and I know people who are up on lookouts feel a part of the land as well. You feel like you're one with it because you're out in it. You are learning to work within it and also to respect it.
So let's talk about fire lookouts. I mean, you help preserve the stories of the people who live in these towers on the mountaintops of Montana. What exactly is a fire lookout, and how does it work?
So fire lookouts are essentially structures that are up on the tops of mountains that are used to find fires and to help people on the ground know where they are so that fire crews can go in and then put the fires out if they have the opportunity to do that.
Mm-hmm.
And they have been around since the early 1920s. And then later on, they started actually building little cabins on the ground. People would stay in there and detect fires, or they eventually started putting some of them up on 40-foot high areas.
You mean a tower is 40 feet
Yes,
high?
towers, yes.
And what is in a tower? I mean, how big a space is it?
Most of them are approximately 12 by 12 feet or 14 feet by 14 feet. Some of them are just used day in the day, but other towers, and especially the more recent ones, are complete homes essentially. I want to say when people would come up to see me, they a lot of them have never been in a lookout. They have
Right.
never seen one.
Oh, I'm one.
Yeah.
In the cabin, you'd have what, a bed, and how would you get your food and all that water and all that?
It depends on whether you can drive to the lookout itself or if you have to hike in or be helicoptered in or whatever, if it's way too far to go. And so if you can drive it there yourself, most people who are lookouts will go to the store and shop for as long as they think they might be able to stay up there and not be resupplied.
Mm-hmm.
Um, if it is in the back country, it's a lot more difficult. And usually those people get their food and it is taken by mule string. So usually they go up the mountainside and deliver food and water sometimes to the lookouts. And sometimes the lookouts try to prepare for the summer, but they can't do that with everything. Inside the cab itself, it has a bed, yes, normally, and then you would have a table, usually a stove these days, and then there's maybe a small stove, a wood stove for heat.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of your living space. And you have four walls that are windows. So you're living in a glass house essentially. And the if you have counters inside, they are lower than what you would expect in a house so that you have more space that you can look down on a mountain or wherever you are and have more chance to see fires if they're going to be coming.
So I'm just trying to, how frequently do they need to check for fires?
Normally in the past you would be required to go around the catwalk or inside or wherever about every 20 minutes to a half hour or something like that. Over time, I guess they kind of realized that they didn't necessarily have to do that. So you know that landscape because you've been following it for a while.
Right, right.
Yeah, if there is a fire out there or if there are chances for one, say you had lightning or whatever, you might look a lot closer in a particular area to see if you see any smokes or whatever. But generally speaking, you know that area well enough that you know when there's something out of place.
Mm-hmm.
And so you can pretty much pick up on those types of things.
Well, how long does somebody stay up in the tower?
There were lookouts who would stay up all summer long. There still are.
All
Not
summer
as many.
long.
Yes. Yeah.
What's it like for them to be isolated up there? Is it difficult? I mean, how long do they have to stay up there?
People who are up there all summer, generally speaking, if they are up there all summer, it's because they enjoy being there. They don't necessarily have problems with being alone. In fact,
Uh-huh.
a lot of them enjoy being alone. They feel that solitude it stimulates them,
Right.
or teaches them how to pay attention to themselves,
Mm-hmm.
and just people learn to love it. They don't really get lonely, even if they're up there totally by themselves for months.
Mm-hmm.
Now, we have people who are also just up there maybe 10 days at a time. We have a volunteer program.
10 days. 10 days sounds like a long time to me, but then I'm a long way away from the fire tower in the Montana forest. I mean, what's the longest somebody has stayed up there?
Usually, the summer here now is considered from the 1st of July until mid-September. And so that's our fire season, essentially, where you expect to possibly have some fires.
So somebody might be up there for 2 months?
Yes.
But so you do your cooking up there. I understand there's a Lookout cookbook, right?
Yes, there is. There's one that was put out by the U.S. Forest Service years ago. I kind of like their breakfasts. They have
Mm-hmm.
eggs and I would say, quesadillas, and people do pancakes and make lots of different types of just breakfast foods that are easy
Mm-hmm.
to prepare.
Hmm.
Some have berries that people collect up there or whatever.
Are there huckleberries up there?
There certainly are, yeah. In fact, I was just up at a lookout and there were huckleberries all over the place. So people are starting to collect them and they'll have them in their pancakes or they'll make bread or muffins or pies or whatever up there with them.
Mm-hmm. Are people able to stop in to visit them, or do they, or if you go there, do you have to have isolation, or depending on your how you look at it, privacy only?
No, if it's up to you. Now, if you are the lookout, your building, the lookout itself, is your home. And so you have the opportunity to choose to have people come and stay with you if you'd like, or just visit. Some people bring up dinners to people. One of the lookouts that we have these or today had a friend take ice cream 7 miles up a trail to deliver it to the lookout. And she
Wow.
did that, I guess, by putting it in dry ice and carrying it up, which was pretty special.
So you preserve the stories of the people who do this. And I'm just wondering, what are your 2 or 3 memorable stories of people who spent their time in these fire lookouts? What impression did they leave on you?
Oh, the impressions are incredible because these people, every person who goes up there is different. And with the Lookout Association that I am a member of, we so far have collected 33 different oral history interviews. Storms seem to be the biggest thrill
Mm-hmm.
for lookouts. It seems like the worse the storm can get, the better they like it.
Well, they can
Um,
see it on the horizon coming, can't they?
they can see it on the horizon. Yes, definitely. And if it's a big storm, then usually it comes with a lot of lightning and sometimes a lot of wind. There's been lookouts that have had their windows blown out by storms, even though everything is battened down tight when
Wow.
you know there's going to be a storm there. One story that somebody told me was about, and he was a kid at the time. He was up at the lookout with his family, and they had a huge storm that was on its way. They could feel the hair stand up on the back of their neck.
Hmm.
And all of a sudden, the wires outside the lookout that went all the way around both up and down, so horizontal and vertical, started to buzz and buzz and buzz. And then they started seeing this ball of static collect, and it would go one direction and then it would go down, it would go up. Crazy things happen like that to people.
Wow.
And then my friend also told a story about being in a lookout in Idaho, September 11th, 2001. And he said he'd noticed that there were no planes flying and he couldn't figure it out. There weren't any contrails. He
Hmm.
said it was absolutely quiet and he knew something happened. So he started listening to the radio and heard all the horrible things that went on with 9/11.
Well, that's a really interesting story because it reminds us how connected we are as a country, right? I mean, You
Yes,
can be on some lookout in the mountaintop of Montana, and you know that the world has changed because you're attuned to flights that go over, going from one place to another, and now there are no flights. And,
exactly.
that's really interesting.
Yeah.
Any others?
I would say that there were times when people would grow up in a lookout itself. And, I was telling about one of them who was a kid. His family went to this fire lookout in 1955 when he was 11. And he
Huh.
said it was the first time he had ever seen pack mules or had to haul water. He said he and his brother would help the parents actually do the looking for fires. They would haul wood and they would pick huckleberries. They built rocks out of, or built forts out of rocks and trees. They fished and played with
Hmm.
slingshots. But the thing that interested me the most, I guess, is that he and his brother was 13, he was 11. So they built a zip line with number 9 copper wire that's used for the radio communications. They
Right.
had some on the ground.
Huh.
So they would take just a piece of pipe and use that as a zip line and go flying down the mountainside. And, these poor guys, they
Yeah,
luckily
exactly.
didn't get
I
in
don't. I
trouble.
don't know if I'd trust that line.
I don't think I would.
Hmm. Beth, what an interesting job, and you are memorializing a really interesting job that most Americans have no clue about. If you were going to tell somebody in Boston, Massachusetts, or Miami, Florida, or Chicago, what's the one thing about living in these lookouts that they probably don't understand? What is it that you would tell them?
I would say that there's a huge feeling that you're connected with nature. You have enough time yourself that you can connect with yourself and learn how to be alone. And that might be something that's important for people who are even considering doing it because that's not for everyone. But there's the power of nature that becomes part of you, I think. You're
Mm-hmm.
right smack in the middle of it. And after a while, if you are truly enjoying what you're doing, it becomes a part of you.
Right. And the ability to be alone is a very important skill in a modern world where we're badgered constantly by noise and fleeting images. But just have the quiet to sit and be alone with yourself.
Right. Yes. In
Yeah.
fact, I had been up to the lookout not too long ago, and there were 8 hummingbirds that would hang out at a little tiny hummingbird feeder that was hanging off the edge of the catwalk.
Oh, really?
It was amazing just to, you could sit there and just enjoy them. You didn't have to think, you didn't have to do anything in particular, but you felt really comfortable and people would come up to the lookout and be amazed. So, you got to be up there and know what you're doing and be willing to change because it is taking a risk to go to these places, but there aren't many people who have that opportunity. And the lookouts are dwindling more and more. So I just have always felt fortunate to be able to be a part of that community, and
Mm-hmm.
they're addictive.
Well, listen, Beth, I want to thank you for being here on American Voices and thank you for preserving these life stories of people who work in these lookouts and making them accessible to the public. The stories are available at the University of Montana's Mansfield Library. Thank you, Beth.
Yes, thank you, Senator, and thank you for your work also in preservation of stories.
Uh-huh. Well, that's true. That's what we try to do. I've been speaking with Beth Hodder. She's a board member of the Northwest Montana Lookout Association. To find out more, visit us on Facebook. Our Facebook page is American Voices with Senator Bill Bradley. On Instagram, it's Bill Bradley on SiriusXM. And Beth, yes, I want to preserve those stories, but I have to have people like you who will tell me the stories. So thank you very much again.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure. Hi, this is Beth Hodder. I'm listening to a chickadee outside here, and it is calling to its mate. They have a nest that is very close to a chokecherry bush that they are in. It's fun to watch them. This morning I also watched a hummingbird get into the chokecherries because the chokecherries are starting to turn color and they were attracted to the red. So I'm getting a little menagerie of birds here, and it's so much fun to watch.
You're listening to American Voices on Sirius XM. I'm Bill Bradley. Stay with us. Thank you for listening to American Voices here on my YouTube channel. For more interviews celebrating the goodness and creativity of the American people, click the subscribe button below.